Hello, excuse me. Hello. I had trouble getting this to go live. I'd like to talk about what first of all the U.S. default history and what could happen if the U.S. government defaults. It's a very interesting subject. First, if you do a search on Google, y- some of the things there say the U.S. has never defaulted. It's not true. Actually, the first default occurred in 1790 during when George Washington was president. They had the Funding Act of 1979. Even though this was the act of a new government of the U.S., it assumed the war debt and and its constituent states. Then in 1861, the U.S. government defaulted during the Civil War, and that's how legal tender really came about in the United States. But the biggest default was really 1933. To deal with this, FDR took us off the gold standard. You figure Roosevelt felt the U.S. economy in shambles. One of the most unfortunate actions related to the government was the bond issued for many years. Figure one of the more unorthodox actions related to the U.S. government bond issued many years earlier, in 1917, after World War I ended. The U.S. Congress passed the first and second Liberty Bond Acts. And then there was another default that really occurred in 1979, where the U.S. Treasury failed to send checks out on time for an amount totaling $122 million. And then the thing is, okay, you look at, as I was saying, you look at history. In 1866, the 14th Amendment was adopted. The U.S. government has defaulted on its debt obligations, and this was done to raise money. Now, what could happen if the U.S. defaults? It's going to cause a lot of chaos. You figure if the U.S. would default, this would send shockwaves around the world in the financial markets. I think it would be cause for the stock market to crash. If the U.S. defaults, a lot of these government programs aren't going to be funded under law. They can't keep. They can't keep. What's going to happen if people on public assistance programs, government subsidized housing, food stamps, welfare, Social Security? People aren't going to get money for any of this stuff if the U.S. defaults. If the poor people don't have any money, and I think they have cards now. Years ago it was called food stamps. Well, if their card doesn't work and they can't buy food, there could be panic in the streets. If there's panic in the streets and people can't buy food, we're going to have chaos in this country. It could cause the National Guard to be called up to put down public unrest. I just I don't think most people in this country will have any idea. I've been telling anybody that will listen, if you thought 2021 was bad in 2022, wait to see what happens in 2023. I didn't put live chat on here because I wanted to get my point across. But do a search on Google. What will happen if the government defaults? The results are very interesting. And then I was shocked to find I think China doesn't have as much of the U.S. debt as Japan does. Let me find. Okay, as of January 2023, the five countries owning the most U.S. debt are Japan owns 1.1 trillion, China 859 billion, the United Kingdom 668 billion, Belgium 331 billion, and Luxembourg 318 billion. Well, if the U.S. government does default, um, the Democrats are going to blame it on the Republicans. And like I said, on one hand, it's going to create a lot of problems, but in the end, it might cause us to have a new system. And how much money do we owe? It's 20. I think it's $26.13 trillion. It's going to get to the point where it's like a mortgage. If the interest becomes more than the principal, that's what's going to happen with our debt. And you figure, why does China buy U.S. debt? You figure from a national perspective, China buys U.S. debt due to its complex financial systems. The central banks must purchase U.S. treasuries and other foreign assets to keep cash inflows from causing inflation. And in the case of China, this is phenomenal. This phenomenon is very unusual. As recently as 2020, okay, the debt in the United States was related to the GDP. But since 2022, China's relative debt burden stood about 40% higher than Americans. I'm telling you, if we default, the stock market's going to crash. We're going to see just literal chaos. I don't think anybody has any idea of how big the repercussions are. This is going to be like a domino effect. And today, the stock market was down. The only thing I found that really stock that was up was some of the healthcare stocks. Well, I just wanted to share my opinions about this because unfortunately most of the people in this country don't know a thing about our history anymore. Now, the U.S. has defaulted before, and I think it's going to happen again. Now, something has to be done. Okay, thanks for watching my video, and have a good night.